publicly humiliating. The only reason this black bitch is at our table
is because my brother's got a fetish. Brett said it loud. Fork down, grin wide. The whole reunion heard it. Faith's jaw locked.
Todd, you hear what your brother just said?
Todd didn't look up. Just let it go, Faith. Let it go.
Let it go? He just called me a fetish in front of your whole family.
I said drop it.
No. 9 years your family treated me like dirt. I'm done being quiet.
Todd stood up. His hand cracked across her face. The sound split the yard like a gunshot. 60 guests. Not one mouth opened. Brett laughed.
Guess the dog needed training after all.
But what none of them knew was this. In less than 3 hours, Faith's face would appear on national television. And every single person at that table would choke on their silence. Whew. Let me take you back to the beginning. Because how Faith got to that table, that's the real story. Now let me take you back. Before the slap, before the blood rushed to Faith's cheek, before 60 forks stopped moving. Let me tell you how Faith Underwood ended up at that table in the first place. The Anderson estate sat on 40 acres of Virginia countryside. White fences, oak trees lining a gravel driveway so long you could lose cell signal halfway through. A colonial farmhouse passed down 3 generations, built on old money and older pride. Every 4th of July, the Andersons threw their reunion. Tents, buffet tables, a hired barbecue crew smoking ribs since sunrise, a country band on a wooden stage, American flags hanging from every post. Picture perfect, postcard ready. About 80 guests showed up that year. Neighbors, old friends, a couple local politicians shaking hands. Almost every face was white. Almost every handshake came with a last name that had been in that county for 100 years. And then there was Faith. Faith Underwood, black woman, early 40s, wore a linen sundress and small gold earrings, carried a peach cobbler she baked at 5 that morning, her Mama Naomi's recipe. The same cobbler she brought every single year for 9 years straight. 9 years. That's how long she'd been married to Todd Anderson. See, here's what you need to understand about Todd. When he met Faith, he was 29, working a dead-end desk job at a small bank in Richmond. No direction, no ambition. Faith was already a rising reporter at a local news station. Sharp, beautiful, driven. Todd was fascinated by her. But Todd didn't fall in love with Faith. He fell in love with what she gave him. Attention, status, a woman who made him look interesting at parties, a woman whose success reflected on him. His family hated it from day one. Eleanor Anderson, Todd's mother, sat him down the week he proposed. She didn't yell, she didn't cry. She just said, cold and flat, "You can date whoever you want, but an Anderson does not marry a black woman. That is not what this family is." Todd married Faith anyway, but not because he was brave, because he was stubborn. He wanted to prove his mother wrong, not about racism, but about control. He didn't defend Faith, he used her. And every year that passed, Todd changed. Or maybe he just stopped pretending. The more Faith's career grew, the smaller Todd felt. She got promoted, he got bitter. She got invited to anchor a weekend segment. He got drunk and told her she was getting too full of herself. She won a regional journalism award. He didn't come to the ceremony. Todd started echoing his family's language. Not the slurs, not yet, but the tone, the little digs. You're so loud sometimes. Why do you always have to be the center of attention? My mother says you make people uncomfortable." Faith heard what those words really meant. She always did. But she stayed, because she loved the man she married, not the man he was becoming. That morning, the morning of the reunion, Faith stood in the bathroom mirror at 6 a.m. pressing her dress. Todd walked past without saying good morning. She asked if he wanted coffee. He said, "We're already late because of you." They drove 40 minutes in silence. The smell of peach cobbler filled the car. Todd cracked his window like the scent bothered him. When they pulled up the gravel driveway, Faith saw the tents, the flags, the crowd. She took a breath, told herself what she told herself every year. Smile. Be gracious. Leave early. She stepped out of the car, carrying the cobbler with both hands. Todd was already 10 steps ahead, walking toward his brothers. Didn't hold the door. Didn't take the dish. Didn't look back. Faith's mother Naomi arrived 20 minutes later in her old sedan. She wasn't invited by the Andersons. Faith had asked her to come. Naomi stepped out wearing a floral blouse and flat shoes. She scanned the yard, the white faces, the stiff smiles, the way people's eyes slid past her daughter like she was furniture. Naomi walked straight to Faith, took her hand, squeezed it once. "You don't have to stay long, baby." Faith squeezed back. "I know, Mama." But she didn't leave. Not yet. She had no idea what was coming. The first hit didn't come from a hand. It came from a label, or the lack of one. Buffet time. Eleanor had set up the dessert table herself. Every dish had a little white card in front of it, handwritten, elegant. Eleanor's lemon pound cake, Donna's strawberry trifle, Aunt Ruthie's pecan pie. Faith's peach cobbler sat at the far end of the table. No card, no name. Pushed to the edge like an afterthought. A woman Faith didn't recognize picked up a spoon and leaned over the cobbler. "Oh, this smells amazing. Who made this?" Donna, Brett's wife, walked past and didn't even stop. "I think the caterers brought that one." Faith was standing right there, close enough to touch the table. She spoke up, calm and clear. "Actually, that's mine. It's my mama's recipe." Donna turned around, looked Faith up and down, then smiled, the kind of smile that has teeth but no warmth. "Oh, how ethnic." Two women behind Donna laughed. Not loud, just enough. Faith felt the heat crawl up her neck. But she didn't react. She never reacted. 9 years of practice. Naomi was watching from a bench under the oak tree. She saw the whole thing. Her hands folded in her lap, her jaw tight. She didn't move. Not because she didn't want to, but because Faith had asked her not to. "Please, Mama, I can handle it," Naomi whispered to herself. "Lord, give me strength." The cobbler was gone in 20 minutes, every last bite. No one complimented Faith. Not once. That was the first cut. The second came from Brett. Brett Anderson was the kind of man who said terrible things and called them jokes. He'd learned it from his father, perfected it with age. He stood by the barbecue pit with a Budweiser in one hand and the microphone in the other. The band had handed it to him for the family toast. All right. Welcome, everybody. Another year, another Anderson reunion. The greatest family in Fluvanna County. Cheers, clapping, whistles. Brett grinned. "Now, I see a lot of familiar faces out here, and a couple unfamiliar ones." His eyes drifted to Faith, then to Naomi. He didn't say their names. He didn't have to. But hey, that's what America's all about, right? Open doors, even when you didn't open them yourself. More laughter. Faith stood still, her hand around a plastic cup of sweet tea, her knuckles whitening. Brett wasn't done. You know, I was telling my buddy the other day, Todd's got more diversity in his bedroom than most companies got in their whole building. The crowd erupted. Todd, standing in the circle of Minnu the smoker, cracked a half smile, didn't say a word. Faith's stomach turned. She looked at the ground, took a breath, then looked back up. Because that's what Faith Underwood did. She looked things in the eye. Brett spotted her staring. He tilted his beer toward her. "Aw, come on now. I'm just playing with you, girl. You know we love having you around. Somebody's got to keep the place colorful." A man next to him nearly spit out his drink, laughing.
Faith turned to walk away. As she did, she heard Brett mutter, just loud enough, "Hair like that. I'm surprised she didn't set off the smoke alarm." He was talking about her natural hair, the curls she spent an hour shaping that morning, the curls her mama taught her to love when she was 6 years old. Faith kept walking. Naomi saw her daughter cross the yard, saw the way her shoulders pulled in, the way her steps got quicker. Naomi stood up from the bench, but Faith held up one hand without turning around. A signal. "Not yet, Mama." The third cut came from Eleanor. 3 o'clock. Family photo time. Eleanor had hired a professional photographer. She gathered the family in front of the big oak tree, the same tree the Andersons had taken photos under for 3 decades. Everyone shuffled into place. Todd stood in the second row. Faith moved to stand beside him. She smiled, adjusted her dress. Eleanor walked over, not to Faith, to the photographer. She spoke just loud enough for the front row to hear. "Let's do the first one with just Andersons. Blood family only." Faith blinked. The photographer looked confused. "Ma'am, I thought blood family only." Eleanor's voice was ice wrapped in silk. Faith stepped back. No one told her to. No one had to. Donna nudged her daughter into Faith's spot. Didn't even look at her. Brett called out from the back row, "Don't worry, Faith. We'll take one with the help later." This time, somebody gasped. A woman near the edge, one of the neighbors, covered her mouth. But she didn't say anything. None of them did. Faith stood 15 feet away, alone. The camera flashed. The family smiled. She watched her husband pose with the people who had spent 9 years pretending she didn't exist. Naomi walked up behind her daughter, put her hand on her back, said nothing. Because sometimes there are no words. Sometimes all you can do is stand next to someone and let them know they're not invisible. The photo took 2 minutes. It felt like 2 hours. After the photographer finished, Faith pulled Todd behind the old barn, away from the tents, away from the crowd. The smell of rust and damp wood hung in the air. "Your mother just kicked me out of the family photo." Todd loosened his collar. "She didn't kick you out. She just wanted one with what, Todd? Blood family? I'm your wife. We've been married 9 years. Faith, come on, don't start." "Don't start? Brett called me your fetish. He told me I look like the help. Your mother won't even say my name. And you just stand there." Todd's jaw tightened. "What do you want me to do? Fight my whole family?" "I want you to act like I'm your wife. Just once." Todd stepped closer. His voice dropped. That voice Faith had learned to recognize, the one that came before the ugly words. "You know what your problem is? You think that little news job makes you somebody. You think reading a teleprompter means people owe you respect." Faith didn't step back. "This isn't about my job. It's always about your job.
You walk around here like you're better than everyone. My mother sees it. Brett sees it. Everybody sees it. What they see, Todd, is a black woman who doesn't bow her head. And that kills them. Todd's face went red. A vein in his neck pulsed. He pointed his finger an inch from her face. You better watch how you talk to me. Or what? He didn't answer. Not then. He just stared at her. The kind of stare that stores something up for later. Faith had seen it before. She knew what it meant. She walked away from the barn, back toward the tents. Her hands were trembling, not from fear, from rage she couldn't afford to show. Naomi met her halfway across the yard, didn't ask what happened. She could see it. A mother always can. Baby, let's go home. Faith shook her head. Not yet. If I leave now, they win. Naomi held her daughter's face in both hands. Listen to me. You have nothing to prove to these people. Nothing. Faith placed her hands over her mother's. I know, Mama, but I need to prove it to myself. She straightened her dress, lifted her chin, and walked back toward the table. The sun started dropping around 6. The sky turned pink and orange over the Anderson property. Fireflies blinked along the tree line. The band switched to slower songs. Tiki torches were lit around the yard. The smell of citronella mixed with leftover barbecue smoke. It should have been beautiful. It was, if you didn't know what was underneath. Eleanor Anderson stood at the head of the long wooden table, 80 guests seated around her. She tapped a butter knife against her crystal glass. The chatter died down. I'd like to say a few words. She waited, like she always did, because Eleanor never spoke until she had silence. Total silence. Every year I stand in this same spot, under these same trees, looking at these same faces. And every year I'm reminded why the Anderson name means something. She paused. Let that land. This family wasn't built overnight. It was built by people who understood something important. That legacy is about blood. It's about who you are, where you come from, what runs through your veins. Faith sat in the middle of the table, Naomi beside her. Faith's hands were flat on the table, still, too still. Eleanor continued. Family isn't just about who shows up at the table. It's about who belongs at the table. And I'm grateful every single year that the people sitting here tonight understand what it means to carry the Anderson name. She raised her glass. To bloodline, to tradition, to keeping this family exactly what it's always been. The table erupted. Glasses clinked. Hear, hear! To the Andersons! Brett stood up and whooped. Todd nodded and raised his glass. Donna wiped a fake tear from her eye. Faith didn't move. Her glass sat untouched. Her eyes locked on Eleanor. Naomi reached under the table and placed her hand over Faith's. A silent plea. Don't. Not here. Not now. But Faith had hit a wall. 9 years of walls. And this one was the last. She stood up. The chair scraped against the flagstone. The sound cut through the clinking glasses like a scratch across a record. People turned. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Faith's voice came out calm, steady. The voice of a woman who had spent 15 years speaking to cameras, to millions, to power. Eleanor, I've been coming to this reunion for 9 years. Eleanor lowered her glass. Her smile froze. 9 years I brought food to this table. 9 years I showed up, dressed right, said please and thank you. 9 years I watched your sons make jokes about my skin. 9 years I stood in the back of your family photos. 9 years I bit my tongue so hard it bled. The yard was dead silent. Even the crickets seemed to stop. That toast you just made? About blood and tradition and who belongs? Every person at this table knows what you meant. You meant me. You've always meant me.
Eleanor's jaw tightened. Faith, this is not the time.
It's never the time. That's the trick, isn't it? There's never a right moment for the black woman to speak. It's always too loud, too angry, too sensitive. 9 years, Eleanor. I gave this family 9 years of silence, and I'm done. Brett slammed his palm on the table. Oh, here we go. The race card. Right on schedule. Faith turned to him. Race card? You called me a fetish 3 hours ago. You told me I looked like the help. You made a joke about my hair setting off the smoke alarm. That's not a card, Brett. That's your whole damn deck. Brett's face twisted. Watch your mouth, girl. Or what? You'll call me another slur? Go ahead. You've been rehearsing them all day. The table was frozen. Guests stared at their plates. A woman at the far end quietly put down her napkin and looked at the exit. Todd stood up. His chair didn't scrape. It flew back. His face was dark red. That vein in his neck was back. That's enough, Faith. Faith turned to him. The man she'd loved for 9 years. The man who never once stood between her and his family's cruelty. Enough? Todd, I haven't even started. I said that's enough. Sit down. No. Sit down. Make me. The words hung in the air. Every pair of eyes at that table moved from Faith to Todd, back to Faith, back to Todd. Todd's hand came up fast, open palm, full force, straight across her left cheek. The crack was so loud, a woman at the end of the table dropped her glass. Sweet tea exploded across the white tablecloth like a stain that would never come out. Faith's head snapped to the right, her body swayed, but she didn't fall. Her hand came up slowly to her cheek. She could feel the heat radiating through her fingers. She could taste copper in her mouth. She turned back to face Todd. Slowly, 1 inch at a time, her eyes locked on his. She didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't beg. She just looked at him. And in that look was every dinner she cooked for his family, every insult she swallowed, every night she cried in the bathroom with the faucet running so he wouldn't hear. 60 guests sat frozen, forks midair, mouths open, not one word spoken, not one hand raised, not one person pushed back their chair. Eleanor was the first to move. She set down her glass and said, not to Todd, but to the table, let's all just calm down. Not, are you okay? Not, Todd, what did you do? Just calm down. Manage the scene. Protect the image. Brett leaned back in his chair. She provoked him. Everybody saw that. Donna pulled out her phone, not to call for help, to record. She pointed the camera at Faith, at the black woman with a handprint on her face, not at the man who put it there. A few guests shifted in their seats. One man closed his eyes and shook his head. But he stayed seated. They all stayed seated. Naomi was already on her feet. She crossed the table in 4 steps. She took Faith's hand, gently, firmly, like she was handling something precious and broken at the same time. We're leaving, right now. Faith didn't resist. She let her mother guide her away from the table, away from the tents, away from the flags and the tiki torches and the fireflies. Todd yelled after them. Go ahead! Run! You were never one of us anyway. Brett raised his beer. Don't let the gate hit you on the way out, girl. Naomi didn't turn around. Faith didn't either.
They walked across the gravel driveway, their shoes crunching with every step. The sound of the party resuming behind them, music starting back up, conversations restarting, glasses clinking again, like nothing happened.
They got in the car. Naomi drove. Faith sat in the passenger seat, her hands in her lap.
A tear rolled down her cheek and landed on her dress. She didn't wipe it. The peach cobbler dish, empty now, sat on the back seat. They drove in silence for 10 minutes. The Virginia countryside rolled past, dark fields, distant farmhouses, stars blinking through the windshield. Faith's phone buzzed, then again, then 5 times in a row. She ignored it. Naomi glanced at the screen lighting up. "Baby, your phone." Faith stared out the window. "I don't want to talk to anyone right now." The phone buzzed again, then started ringing. The caller ID read, Carolyn Shaw. Naomi looked at the road, then at her daughter, then at the phone. "Sweetheart, that's the 9th time it's gone off." Faith finally looked down. A wall of texts from Carolyn, capital letters, exclamation marks, 4 missed calls. "Faith, where are you? Turn on a TV, now!"
Faith, answer your phone. The announcement went live. The whole country is watching. Faith's breath caught. Nah, I'm sorry, but what? 60 people, 60, watching a man slap his wife, and not one stood up. Not one. Now be honest with yourself. If you were sitting at that table, fork in your hand, would you have said something? Or would you have just kept chewing? Naomi pulled the car onto the shoulder of a dark, 2-lane road, engine still running, headlights cutting through nothing. Read those messages, Faith. Faith picked up her phone. Her hands were still shaking. She scrolled through Carolyn's texts. Then she saw the link. A live broadcast from WNCN. She tapped it. The screen loaded. Bright studio lights. The WNCN anchor desk. Network executive Megan Torres standing behind the podium with the network logo glowing behind her. Megan's voice came through the tiny phone speaker, clear and proud. Tonight, we are thrilled to make a historic announcement. After 15 years of extraordinary journalism, from war zones to the halls of Congress, we are naming Faith Underwood as the new lead primetime anchor of Washington National Cable News. Faith stopped breathing. Faith becomes the first black woman to hold this position in our network's 30-year history. Her courage, her integrity, and her voice represent everything this network stands for. A highlight reel played. Faith reporting from a hurricane aftermath, wind tearing at her jacket. Faith interviewing a senator, eyes sharp, questions sharper. Faith on a podium, accepting a journalism award. 15 years of work compressed into 90 seconds. Naomi's hand flew to her mouth. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could even speak. She grabbed her daughter's arm and squeezed. "Baby, baby, that's you." Faith stared at the screen. The woman on that broadcast looked powerful, confident, unbreakable. Faith touched her own cheek, still hot, still swollen from Todd's hand, and looked at that woman on the screen and couldn't connect the two. But they were the same woman. They had always been the same woman. Her phone rang. Carolyn. "Faith, oh my God, where are you? The whole country just saw your face. Every network is picking it up. You're trending #1 on every platform right now." Faith's voice cracked, just barely. "Carolyn, something happened tonight." "What? What happened?" "Not now. I'll tell you everything. But I need to make a call first." She hung up, sat still for 5 seconds, then dialed the Fluvanna County Sheriff's Office.
I'd like to report a domestic assault.
Now let me take you back to the Anderson property. Because what happened there in the next 15 minutes is something no one in that family will ever forget. The living room of the Anderson farmhouse had a 65-inch TV mounted over the fireplace. It was always on during reunions, usually tuned to a baseball game or a rerun nobody watched. Background noise. But someone had switched it to WNCN. Maybe by accident. Maybe not. It didn't matter. What mattered is what was on that screen. Faith Underwood's face. 10 times bigger than life. A cousin noticed first. He was walking past the living room with a plate of ribs. He stopped, stared, then called out to the porch. Y'all might want to come see this. People trickled in, 2 at a time, then 5, then everyone. The highlight reel was still playing. Faith in the field. Faith on camera. Faith shaking hands with network executives. Faith's name in gold letters across the bottom of the screen. Faith Underwood, new lead anchor, WNCN, primetime. Brett was the first Anderson to enter the room. His beer was halfway to his mouth. It stayed there, frozen. Eleanor walked in behind him. She saw the screen, her face drained of color. Every shade of fake composure melted off her like candle wax. Todd pushed through the doorway last. He still had red on his knuckles. He looked up at the TV and saw his wife's face, smiling, radiant, celebrated, filling the screen wall to wall. The room was packed. 40 people crammed into a living room built for 15, and not one of them made a sound. Patricia Graves, the local councilwoman who'd been quiet all evening, stood near the window. She turned to Todd. Her voice cut through the silence like a scalpel. "That's your wife, Todd." Todd didn't move. "That woman on that screen, the one the whole country is celebrating right now, is the same woman you slapped at this table an hour ago." Todd opened his mouth. "It's just a news thing. She reads a teleprompter. It's not—" She just became the face of the most watched cable news network in this country. And you hit her. In front of all of us. Eleanor stepped forward. "Patricia, this is a family matter." "Eleanor, I'm a public official. I just watched your son commit assault in front of 60 witnesses. This stopped being a family matter the second his hand touched her face." Nobody backed Patricia up, but nobody argued with her either. The room just stood there, mouths open, eyes on the screen, 60 people finally understanding the weight of what they'd witnessed. The woman they ignored, the woman they mocked, the woman Brett called a dog, the woman Donna recorded like evidence against a criminal, the woman Eleanor cut out of the family photo. That woman was now the most talked about journalist in America, and every single person in that room had watched her husband slap her and done absolutely nothing. The TV kept playing. Faith's face kept shining, and the silence in that living room was so thick you could choke on it. The red and blue lights came 22 minutes later. 2 patrol cars rolled up the Anderson driveway, gravel popping under the tires, headlights sweeping across the yard like searchlights. The country band had already packed up. The tiki torches were burning low. Half the buffet was covered in plastic wrap. The reunion was dead. It just didn't know it yet. Deputy Ray Combs stepped out first. Tall, calm. A man who'd been doing this job for 19 years and had learned to read a scene before anyone said a word. He read this one in 3 seconds. Torn tablecloth,
broken glass still on the flagstone. A crowd of people standing around with the look of folks who'd seen something they wished they hadn't. We received a domestic assault report from this address. I'm looking for Todd Anderson.
Brett stepped forward, arms crossed, chest puffed. Officer, this is private property. Whatever you heard, it was a misunderstanding. Deputy Combs didn't even look at him. Sir, I'm not talking to you. I'm looking for Todd Anderson. Todd came out from the living room, hands in his pockets. He'd splashed water on his face, changed his shirt. Like that mattered.
That's me. Look, officer, I don't know what my wife told you, but she was out of line. She disrespected my whole family. I barely touched her. Combs pulled a notepad from his chest pocket. Mr. Anderson, I'm going to need you to walk me through exactly what happened tonight. Nothing happened. She got emotional. I calmed her down. That's it. You calmed her down how? Todd hesitated. 1 second too long. I just... She was yelling, and I... Did you strike your wife, Mr. Anderson? It wasn't like that. Deputy Combs turned to the guests. I need witnesses. Anyone willing to give a statement about what they saw tonight, please stay. Everyone else, I need you off the property. Most of the Anderson family clammed up, eyes on the ground, mumbled excuses. I didn't really see. It happened so fast. I was inside. 9 years of silence didn't break just because the cops showed up. But Patricia Graves walked straight to Combs. I'll give a full statement. I saw the entire thing. 2 other guests, a retired school teacher and her husband from the neighboring county, stepped forward. We saw it too. All of it. Then came the evidence nobody expected. Combs turned to the crowd. Does anyone have video footage of the incident? Silence. Shuffling feet. Then a voice from the back. Donna does. It was a teenage cousin, 15 years old, sitting on the porch railing with her phone in her hand. She pointed straight at Donna Anderson. She was recording the whole time. I saw her. Donna's face went white. I wasn't... That was just... Ma'am, I need to see that video. Donna looked at Brett. Brett looked at Eleanor. Eleanor looked at the ground. Ma'am, the video. Donna unlocked her phone with trembling fingers, handed it over. Deputy Combs pressed play. The screen showed Faith standing at the table, speaking, then Todd standing up, then the slap. Clear, loud, undeniable. The camera didn't shake. Donna had held it perfectly steady. She'd been filming Faith like a target. Instead, she'd captured the crime. Combs handed the phone to his partner. Bag that as evidence. He turned to Todd. Todd Anderson, you're under arrest for domestic assault. Turn around and put your hands behind your back.
Todd's mouth opened. You can't. This is my family's property. My mother. Turn around, Mr. Anderson. The handcuffs clicked, one wrist, then the other. The sound was small, but it echoed across the yard like a church bell. Brett charged forward. This is bullshit. I'm calling our lawyer. You can't just... Sir, step back or you'll be joining him. Brett stopped.
Eleanor collapsed into a chair.
Not from grief, from embarrassment. Her hands covered her face, not to cry, but to hide. The neighbors were watching. The councilwoman was watching. The world she'd built, the name, the legacy, the bloodline speech, was crumbling in real time. Todd was walked across the yard to the patrol car, past the buffet table, past the empty dance floor, past the family photo spot under the oak tree, the photo Faith wasn't allowed in.
Before Combs put him in the car, Todd turned his head. His last words were aimed at no one and everyone. This is her fault. She humiliated me. Combs opened the back door, paused, looked Todd dead in the eye. "Sir, you humiliated yourself." The door shut. The car pulled down the gravel driveway, red and blue lights fading between the oak trees until they disappeared. Patricia Graves collected her purse, walked past Eleanor without a word, stopped at the edge of the yard, and turned around. "Eleanor, your son committed assault on camera. The only thing destroyed tonight is the lie that this family was ever what you pretended it was." She left. Others followed, one by one. Some shook their heads. 2 women stopped to apologize to Naomi's empty chair, as if the gesture mattered now. Within 30 minutes, the Anderson property was empty. Tiki torches still flickering, flags still hanging, plates of food no one would eat, a tablecloth stained with sweet tea that would never wash out. The Andersons stood alone on their 40 acres, surrounded by nothing but the mess they made. The video hit the internet before Todd's mugshot was even taken. Someone at the reunion, no one ever confirmed who, had airdropped Donna's footage to their own phone before the cops bagged it. By midnight, it was on Twitter. By 2 a.m., it was on every platform that existed. The clip was 41 seconds long. That's all it took. 41 seconds of a man slapping his wife at a 4th of July family reunion. 41 seconds of 60 people doing nothing. 41 seconds that set the entire country on fire. By sunrise, the video had 6 million views. By noon the next day, 20 million. By the end of the week, the numbers stopped mattering. Everyone had seen it. Everyone. The headline wrote itself. Every outlet ran some version of the same story. Newly announced national anchor assaulted by husband at family reunion on the same day her historic appointment was broadcast live. The irony was too sharp, too perfect, too painful to ignore. The hashtag came next. Hashtag Stand with Faith. It started trending at 6 a.m. and didn't stop for 11 days. Domestic violence organizations shared it. Civil rights groups shared it. Senators shared it. Athletes shared it. By Wednesday, it had been posted over 4 million times. WNCN covered the story the way Faith would have wanted, with integrity. No sensationalism, no exploitation. Carolyn Shaw anchored the segment herself. She sat behind the desk Faith was supposed to be sitting at and spoke directly into the camera. The woman you're about to see in this video is my colleague, my friend, and as of last night, the new lead anchor of this network. What happened to her is not entertainment. It is not gossip. It is a story about what happens when racism and domestic violence meet in plain sight, and 60 people choose to look the other way. Carolyn didn't cry on air, but her voice broke once, just once, on the word friend, and that was enough. 4 days after the reunion, Faith sat in the WNCN studio, not behind the anchor desk, not yet. She sat in a single chair in front of a plain background. One camera, no teleprompter, no script. Just her face, her voice, and the truth. My name is Faith Underwood. Most of you know me as a journalist. But this week, I became a headline. And I want to tell you my story. Not the version that went viral, but the full one. She spoke for 8 minutes. No cuts, no edits. 8 straight minutes of a woman reclaiming her own narrative. She talked about the 9 years, the cobbler without a label, the family photos she was cut from, the jokes about her skin, her hair, her worth. She talked about the silence, Todd's silence, the family's silence, the silence of people who knew better but chose comfort over courage. She talked about the slap. Not with anger, not with tears, with precision, the way a journalist talks about facts. My husband hit me in front of his entire family. No one intervened. His brother laughed. His mother told everyone to calm down. His sister-in-law recorded me, not to help, but to humiliate. That is what silence looks like. That is what complicity looks like. Then she said the words that became the most replayed clip of the year. I am filing for divorce. I am pressing full charges, and I am not asking for sympathy. I am asking for accountability. Not just for Todd, but for every person who sat at that table and chose their potato salad over a woman's safety. The video hit 50 million views in 3 days. Faith didn't name-call, didn't scream, didn't beg. Her dignity was her weapon, and it cut deeper than any slur Brett Anderson ever threw. The legal process moved fast, faster than anyone expected. Todd was charged with felony domestic assault. Not a misdemeanor, felony. The prosecutor argued elevation based on 3 factors: the public nature of the attack, the video evidence, and the corroborating testimony of multiple witnesses, including an elected official. Todd's lawyer tried every trick in the book. He called it a momentary lapse in judgment. He called Faith verbally provocative. He called the video taken out of context. The judge wasn't buying it. Neither was the jury. The trial lasted 4 days. The courtroom was packed. National press filled every seat. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but sketch artists captured every moment. Day 1. The prosecution played Donna's video, full screen, full audio. The jury watched in silence. One juror, a woman in her 50s, closed her eyes when the slap landed. She didn't open them again for 10 seconds. Day 2. Faith took the stand. She wore a navy blazer and no jewelry. She answered every question the same way she delivered the news. Calm, precise, devastating. The defense attorney tried to rattle her. Isn't it true you were shouting at your husband's family? Isn't it true you provoked the altercation? Faith looked at him. I stood up at a dinner table and told the truth. If that's a provocation, then every journalist in this country is guilty. The courtroom erupted. The judge called for order, but the damage was done. The defense had nothing. Day 3. Todd took the stand. His lawyer had coached him, told him to stay calm, show remorse, say the right words. It lasted 11 minutes. Under cross-examination, the prosecutor asked one simple question. Mr. Anderson, do you believe your wife belongs in your family? Todd paused. Too long. His mouth opened, closed, opened again.
It's complicated. My family has traditions, and yes or no, Mr. Anderson, does your wife belong in your family? Todd looked at his mother in the gallery, then at Brett, then at his lawyer, then back at the prosecutor. It's not that simple. The jury saw everything they needed to see. Day 4. Verdict. Guilty. Felony domestic assault.
The sentence? 36 months in state prison. Mandatory anger management. Mandatory racial sensitivity counseling upon release. A permanent restraining order against any contact with Faith Underwood. The judge's closing statement made the evening news on every channel in the country. This court recognizes that the defendant's actions were not isolated. They were the product of an environment that tolerated contempt, that normalized exclusion, that enabled cruelty. This family chose silence when they should have chosen decency. The law does not look away, even when a family decides to. Todd was escorted out in handcuffs. He didn't look at the cameras. He didn't look at his mother. He looked at the floor. The same floor Faith had stared at for 9 years. The Andersons didn't survive the aftermath. Todd's employer, a regional financial firm in Richmond, terminated him within 48 hours of the verdict. Eleanor was quietly removed from the board of the Fluvanna County Women's Charitable Foundation. 15 years of chairmanship erased with a single vote. Brett's 2 remaining business partners pulled out of a commercial real estate deal worth $800,000. They didn't give a reason. They didn't need to. Eleanor gave one interview, a local newspaper. She called the trial a media circus and said her son was a good man who made a mistake. The interview went viral for all the wrong reasons. The comment section had to be shut down within an hour. Brett was recognized at a business luncheon the following month. A woman at the next table pointed at him and said loud enough for the room to hear, "That's the guy from the video, the one who called her a dog." Brett left before his food arrived. He didn't go back. The Anderson name, once the pride of Fluvanna County, became the thing people whispered about at gas stations and grocery stores, not with respect, not with fear, with shame. 40 acres, white fences, oak trees, a house passed down 3 generations, and none of it could protect them from 41 seconds of truth. 6 months later, Faith Underwood sat in a makeup chair at the WNCN studio in Washington, D.C. A stylist brushed powder across her cheekbones, the same cheekbones that once burned red under Todd Anderson's hand. An audio tech clipped a microphone to her lapel. A producer counted down in her earpiece. 90 seconds to air, Faith. She looked at herself in the monitor. Navy blazer, gold earrings, hair, her natural curls, styled exactly the way she wanted. Not for anyone else. For her. The ratings were in. Faith's first 3 months as lead anchor had broken every record WNCN had set in 30 years. Viewership up 31%. Demographics shifted, younger, more diverse, more engaged. Advertisers were fighting for slots. The network had never been stronger. But the numbers weren't the story. Faith was the story. Her first major series as lead anchor was a 6-part investigative report called Behind Closed Doors. It examined domestic violence in affluent communities, the kind that hides behind money and manners and family names, the kind that gets excused at dinner tables and covered up in living rooms, the kind Faith knew from the inside. The series was nominated for 3 journalism awards before it even finished airing. Faith had moved into her own apartment in Georgetown. Small, clean, bright, bookshelves on every wall, photos of her mother on the mantel, a kitchen that smelled like peach cobbler on Sunday mornings. No screaming, no silence that meant something worse than screaming, no walking on eggshells across someone else's house. Just peace. Real, earned, hard-won peace. The divorce was finalized 8 weeks after the verdict. Faith didn't ask for anything. Not the house, not the car, not a cent of Anderson money. She walked away clean. The only thing she took was her name. The name she was born with, the name that was now on every screen in America. Underwood. She started a foundation, the Underwood Initiative. It provided legal aid,
career counseling, and emergency housing for women leaving abusive relationships. In its first 4 months, it helped over 200 women. The waiting list had 3 times that number. Faith didn't talk about Todd in interviews anymore. She didn't need to. The verdict spoke. The video spoke. The 36 months spoke. What she talked about was the silence. The 60 people at that table, the forks that kept moving, the eyes that looked away. "Abusers don't scare me," she told one interviewer. "I married one. I survived one. What scares me is the room full of people who watched and did nothing. Because that room is everywhere. That table is in every family. And until we stop treating silence like politeness, nothing changes." Naomi watched every broadcast, every single one. From her living room in Richmond, in her old recliner, with a cup of tea going cold on the side table because she forgot about it the second Faith appeared on screen. Every night, after the show ended, Naomi called. Sometimes they talked for an hour, sometimes just 5 minutes. Sometimes Naomi just said, "You did good tonight, baby." And that was enough. The last scene. 9:58 p.m., 2 minutes to air. Faith sat in the anchor chair. The studio lights were hot on her face. The teleprompter glowed green. The camera operator held up 5 fingers, then 4, 3, 2. Faith took one breath. In that half second, she saw it. Not on the monitor, in her mind. A woman standing at the edge of a family photo, arms at her sides, cut from the frame, invisible. She blinked. The red light came on. And Faith Underwood spoke to the nation. Not from the margins, not from the back row, not from the edge of someone else's table, from the center. Back in Richmond, Naomi leaned forward in her recliner, tea forgotten, eyes shining. She pressed her hand against the TV screen, just for a second, and whispered, "Man, this story is fiction. But that silence? That's real. 60 people watching a man slap his wife, and nobody said a word. Now imagine you were at that table. What would you do? Tell me in the comments. And if this hit you, like, share, subscribe. Simple.